I know the town manager knows that it's totally fine, to pursue investigating, exploring these ideas. And so with that, I would hope, that the planning director and the development board would then set out a course of action. And I don't mean action like well-defined steps, but general steps, for us to contemplate, and I also know, I'm kind of doing a little bit of stream of consciousness here. I also know that there are plans for the redevelopment board and the select board to meet more frequently. And there will be topics of conversation. And if someone asks me what a topic should be, I will probably bring this up. And I say probably because who knows what else will have come up in the meantime. But certainly something that is appealing to me. And as an East Arlington resident and someone who would like to see Broadway be more of a destination, because as I think someone mentioned, we really just kind of use it to go from one place to another. I'm excited about it. And so I'm going to stop talking now. And I saw some hands go up. So
I think Claire was ready to answer too.
Okay, Claire, please.
I just have, I have one, kind of one way I think that we could start, to work towards some of these ideas, and that is that we are embarking on a year-long process for Arlington to adopt the MBTA communities policy, which will result in some upzoning in the community. This is the program or the policy that I think you may have heard about. Certainly, it's been in the news, which requires communities. They either have a transit station or adjacent to a community that has a transit station to create a reasonably sized zone that would allow for density in housing and housing production. There have been some changes, I think, to the initial information that was coming out about MBTA communities from DHCD, from the state. They've released their final guidelines in August. And working with the redevelopment board in their meetings, we have laid out a very tentative schedule for a campaign really to adopt MBTA communities next fall at a special town meeting. So advocacy around this policy is huge. We would love to have the community adopt this policy. It will make us eligible or continued eligibility for several state grant opportunities like MassWorks. We just received a $307,000 grant from them for the Mass Ave Appleton corridor. I mean, that is a corridor I know everybody's really interested in, because of the unfortunate fatality. This is significant funding available for communities to do projects like this. And another thing I think of interest to this group is that we would be looking to get into the zero fossil fuel pilot program. We are looking February 2024 would be admittance into that state pilot program. So we'd love to get this thing adopted and in place. We would be ineligible without it. So some advocacy around that would be awesome from this group and others. And please stay tuned because there'll be a lot more information coming out in the middle of November.
Thank you, Claire. So in order, I'd see David Krantz, and then Gina S., and then Susan Stamps. So, David?
Hi. So I think there are a lot of really interesting and good ideas in these proposals. I do have one concern that, significant amounts of upzoning and also, anti-car policies, will put probably significant pressure on the MBTA system, and the red line is really our only real link into that. We can certainly do things to improve bus transit within Arlington, adding more buses and so on. But I think the red line, there are places in the world where subways run every couple of minutes, but the MBTA seems to be moving in the opposite direction. So I just hope as part of this planning, there will be real emphasis on making sure that the public transit infrastructure can actually support the upzoning and other measures that are being proposed in these sorts of things.
Yes, I hear that. And I'll tell you one of the reasons that the red line, all the system pretty much is working on slower schedules for staffing reasons. So they are trying to hire people. The T for a while, both intentionally and unintentionally, had a headcount reduction program. And so that has manifested itself in a very bad way now. And so we were short staffed for a while. There were problems, especially hiring bus drivers, and that has just been compounded by the pandemic. So it's probably going to take us a number of years to work our way out of this. Hopefully, though, the emphasis will be on the red line or the subway system initially, and we can get back to like 3-minute headways on the red line during rush hour. But yeah, I agree. We are pushing people towards transit, but we have to make sure the transit works. But an idea that I have, and I've been exploring it a lot, is just how do we change the whole entire transportation system into a transit system, transit and freight system. And I think there are ways that we can utilize cars, and the way they access the transportation network that is more transit. And I think if we do car sharing, that can reduce the need for the number of cars, reduce the need for parking, also make the transportation system more equitable because you can give people more access to cars. So I think there are ways that we can do transit that are different than the way that we do it now that will make transit more useful or more of a utility. So
yeah, no, I agree, but I think there's a temptation, particularly, a lot of people who are in favor of things like upzoning also don't like cars. And there's a strong temptation to just say, let's make it more difficult to get around by car and we'll worry about the rest later. And I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah. No, I agree, because especially, there are a lot of people who have lower income jobs, that aren't accessible by transit, they need cars to get around. And so how do we provide them with access to vehicles? So yeah. So anything else, David? All right. Gina, Judas? Maybe, I think I'll ask you to unmute again. Maybe we lost the ability. Okay. Yeah.
No,
sorry.
I've got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I kept trying to hit the thing.
No problem. I think it's my fault.
All right. Well, first I want to say, wow, those projects are really, really exciting and impressive. And thank you all for really, really hard work. I'm an architect. I understand how much went into it, and 10 minutes is just a blink of what you all spent time doing. I also want to say that although Barbara said wild and crazy ideas, these are not wild and crazy. These are doable. A lot of them are doable now, and I think a lot of them have to be done soon. Otherwise, the area is going to be built up and it's going to be stuck, and you won't be able to do some of these innovative ideas. So looking at 10, 20, 30 years to do a geothermal microgrid is not good enough. And if we're going to make this an MBTA community and we're going to get off of fossil fuels, now is the time to really start to initiate this and to push it on every single level that we can. So that's my little spiel. I think Arlington is going in the right direction, but like the whole world, not fast enough. And we can be leaders and push the envelope and advocate for what is really needed in this time. And I think the HS kids know this. and I can see that in their drive for sustainability, livable streets, walkable streets, and neighborhoods. So thank you all so very much. It's really exciting to see.
Well, thank you, Gina. Thank you very much for that comment. And yeah, I think inspiring everyone, to take action. And part of the reason for this competition was to show that residents can make things happen. And this is a town that is willing to support you. In exploring ideas. And bringing them to your fellow residents, and then encouraging those who vote and make policy to do things. So thanks again, Susan.
Hi, thanks. Oh man, I was just blown away by these three presentations, especially our high school kids. Wow. Boy, oh boy. I remember when I was in high school, I certainly wasn't doing anything like that. Very impressive. And thanks to everybody for all that work. I'm a newbie in Arlington. I've only been here like 12 years. And when I arrived, the Mass Ave Corridor project was still the subject of great dispute. But it did finally get done. And it turned an area of Mass Ave from the Cambridge border up to the center from a kind of a wasteland to a really nice place to be and a nice place to walk. And as Jennifer, I also live a block from Broadway. So I live actually halfway between Mass Ave and Broadway. And like Jennifer Lutowski said, there's really nothing on Broadway. It's a lot like, and it looks kind of bleak. It kind of looks like a wasteland the way Mass Ave in East Arlington used to look. And I know that someone died crossing that, at least one person crossing Mass Ave, and maybe that was the impetus for redoing the roadway. I don't know what the impetus would be for doing Broadway, but it would be great to have a road project like that. The other place that needs it in town is basically from the high school up to where the Heights starts is also kind of a wasteland. So there are three main non-walkable spaces, in my opinion, in Arlington. It would be nice to see these kinds of ideas for all three of them. I think that there needs to be, before we kind of look at the micro level, like the pocket parks, more trees. I'd also like to see de-paving. I think we need to have more of a bird's eye view of what we want our streets to look like, and kind of have a holistic design for all of Arlington, for those three areas, before we get started on any one in particular. And I'm kind of surprised that the town hasn't already done that. And again, if anybody knows why we went and did the amazing East Arlington project, I'd be really interested to know. I don't know if Broadway is a little far from the T station over at Alewife to actually, if we built the housing needed under the MBTA Communities Act. I don't know if that's close enough, but it is exciting to think of some of the things we could do in town because of that. So I am a member of the tree committee, and I was just thinking, as everybody was doing their presentations about how we struggle to get trees in the ground, and more importantly, to keep trees alive for the first 3 years, especially in these times of drought, and to see green space being such an important value, especially to the kids. It really is wonderful to see. And so we look forward to seeing where these ideas go.
Thank you, Susan. So, next, we have Peg Agata.
Hi, everybody. Really glad to be here, and to really excited that the creativity involved in this from everyone. and the range from the environmental to the, the nitty gritty of where things go on the street, from bike lanes to cars to whatnot. Living in East Arlington, I'm particularly concerned about, but the question comes up because I'm on the end of Broadway, right by the brook, and there's a potential for high-rise housing at the end of the street. So my question is how you balance population density with community, really. There's a good community along this section of town. I know a lot of my neighbors and I appreciate them, and we're helpful to each other and friendly. When you add in high-rise and population dense housing, how does that change things? And just trying to imagine how that affects the Arlington Greenway if you add in, even just 100 units with 2 people, and so you have 200 more people on one street, but you're talking about even bigger units at that intersection, I think. So that's one of my concerns, but I'm really here to just celebrate the fact that you guys, imagined what could happen. And I really appreciate that. It's a very creative and fun thing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Peg. And yes, I mean, the goal of this is not only to come up with interesting ideas, but also to kind of spark a community conversation. And so we will certainly come up with ways to continue the conversation, and I can see other contests for other areas. I mean, Susan certainly mentioned in area 2, and of course, if you all have any ideas of things that you want to do along these lines, I mean, by all means, feel free to bring them to my attention or Claire's attention or anyone's attention, and just they can get those ideas made to people who can help you realize them, and more so that's just by giving you the support, and providing you with the resources that you need to promote the idea, or promote at least, publicize the idea. Folks on the select board, probably know people on the redevelopment board, and hopefully, some people who are part of the civic engagement group, or even your town meeting member. So keep the conversation going and start new conversations. And I see Barbara's hand up, and maybe Barbara will close us out.
I just want to ask. I think Peg McAdam asked a really interesting and very deep question that's a little off the 20-year from now plan, but it reminded me that we have the owners of these ideas in the room with us now, and they've heard the responses, and I wanted to give them an opportunity to maybe answer some questions or add to the questions or duck the questions or some way respond.
By all means.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to Peg McAdam. I really appreciate her comment, sure. Particularly being involved myself, for the last 40 years doing housing, and sometimes very high density housing. And it's a complicated issue. And I think the only thing I would say and suggest, and I think Arlington is set up to do this, is to the extent to which this housing can grow from the inside, the better off it is. So that the community should be involved from the get-go, and Peg McAdam and her neighbors should be participating in these conversations with whoever developer, and the town should be encouraging the community to get involved. So it may sound a little bit corny, but it really matters that the community is involved in conversations rather than having something imposed upon them. They're part of a conversation where things grow from the inside out. I think I would like to say that to Peg in particular because of the concerns she raised. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just say something about apartment buildings. I was hesitating to do so. I've lived in apartment buildings, and I'll just say that I knew more neighbors when I live in apartment buildings, then I do not living in an apartment building. So they are communities unto themselves. And also interacted with people outside of the apartment buildings. Especially since I walk to the T, but still, there is just more people to get to know. Now, for some people, that's not necessarily a good thing, because I think some people do like the isolation that they get from not living in an apartment building. But that's the nature of us biological beings. There's lots of variation in us. Petra?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to the earlier comment from David, who I'm not sure if he's still here, but he mentioned something about how, creating less car-oriented streets may be difficult based on the unreliability of the T, noting that the Red Line station is not super close to the Broadway corridor. But I just wanted to respond by saying, while bus rapid transit isn't a train, it's basically a bus that is a train because it's so reliable. It has, when you enter the system, you pay before you get on, you have priority, your own lane in traffic, and all the stations are just as nice as the subway stations. So I really think that, while it's not a full-fledged subway, it's basically an equivalent because you have the dedication, you have the reliability, and you have the speed, and it's a lot cheaper to implement, but still just as nice. As well as if people are not able to take the T where they wish to go, they also have the opportunity to use the safe bicycle networks and pedestrian networks that every team, not just our own, proposed. So while it's a valid concern, I think that we have given people so many choices that Broadway could flourish. You could flourish in the Broadway corridor even if you didn't have a car, because you have so many options. So even if it's a little snowy, you can take a bus, and if it's really hot outside, then you can take a bus, or if you want to bike, you can bike. It's going to be safe. You have options, and that's really the key. We really, really want to encourage options. So that was our takeaway from that comment.
Thank you, Petra. Barbara, is that
Yeah, I know.
back?
It is, and I know that we're getting to the final minutes here, and we've heard from the Winslow team, and we've heard from the AHS team, and I feel like these teams have initiated us on us meaning the town of Arlington residents, on a quest toward the future. And I'm wondering if maybe the MIT team or any of the other teams or the judge in residence might want to give us a blessing or any particular wish as we head off into that future. I see Daniel ready.
No, yeah, but I feel that I'm very grateful about, being heard, of being able to participate, giving our ideas, even though we are not the resident of Arlington ourselves, right? And I totally resonated with what Gina said before, that some of these ideas are actually very, very implementable. Not in the long term, but in the short or medium term. And I think if we can find ways, in class we learned about something called tactical urbanism, like maybe not directly like closing the street and making everything directly for bikes and for bus only, getting rid of cars. But what if just Sunday morning, close them a little bit, give community a chance to create a Sunday market, sell local groceries, or exhibit local dance or local cultural spaces. Those small things in small placemaking can be implementable, even though these ideas are probably so visionary, but we can definitely break it down into very, very small things that we can implement this weekend or this month or so. I think, I'm sure the planning department also already have a lot of ideas about how to make Arlington to be a place to be very a lively place and very fun place to be. So
That's great. And I hope you'll stay engaged with the town, on these ideas and others. I know that, towards the end of your deck, you had some some ideas about how to continue the engagement. So I welcome that. I mean, and in general, I mean, I try to create the attitude of how to get to yes with just about any idea, because I feel that you learn something in the process, even if in the process you learn that the idea isn't workable, you learn a lot in coming to that conclusion. So I definitely encourage that, and so let's do keep in touch, and people who know me know that I can do that. I mean, I usually circle back every now and then. I put little reminders, and so if I don't hear from you, you'll hear from me, and I'll ask what's up, and maybe we can come up with that, because I like that Sunday closing idea, and I think maybe it has some legs to it. So, and I see Petra's got a thumbs up. So now you've really gotten the blessings. I'm not going to add any more closing remarks, because you have a sense of how I would like to see things progress along in the near to intermediate term, which is just keep exploring ideas, and we will work. As a town, I think we're on the same page here, and we have a lot of respect for the residents, and so nothing's just going to happen. I mean, there'll be lots of community engagement. With whatever we want to try to do. And the more we engage, the more ideas we'll get. So thank you all, and I think with that, say good night.